Alright, what's up guys? How we doing? I just saw Gladiator 2. Now let's talk about it. After his home is conquered by the tyrannical emperors who now lead Rome, Lucius is forced to enter the Colosseum and must look to his past to find strength to return the glory of Rome to its people. And this movie is once again directed by Ridley Scott, written by David Scarpa, Peter Craig, and David Franzoni. And I don't think I'll be the first one to say that the trailers for this film did not necessarily excite me. I think they looked pretty lackluster and pretty basic. And until last night, I had never seen the first film all the way through. When I was a kid, it was 4 years old when I came out. And when I was a kid, it was always just that movie that was on TNT or, TBS, whatever network it was on. That was the only time that I had really ever seen it, in bits and pieces here and there. Good movie. The movie's awesome. Russell Crowe is amazing in it as Maximus. And I just think there are parts, the beginning in that movie, I just think it's a little boring. Some of the dialogue and all that just didn't quite catch me. It might be because I didn't see it in theaters, not only back then, but just in general. Joaquin Phoenix, great. Story is tried and true, but I just do think that a lot of the fight scenes, a lot of the battles are just kind of outdated. But anyways, we got a whole new crew in this movie, some returning characters, but we got Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, a lot of A-list, a lot of stars are in this movie, so I was still excited for sure. And we also got Connie Nielsen making a return to her role as Lucia. Now, just right off the bat, this movie definitely surprised me. I actually really enjoyed it. It does have its problems. I'll get into that later, but I liked it. I was engaged pretty much the whole time. Did not feel like a 2.5 hour movie to me. And I think it's just all the star power that they bring into this film, starting off with Paul Mescal. I only know him from After Sun, came out 2 years ago. Great film. Definitely go watch that movie. But he brings a lot to this role as Lucius. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's better than Russell Crowe in this one in any way, or that he holds a torch to him even. But I think he definitely holds his ground. He's that soldier, he's that fighter who, he's noble, he has valor. And he's just captured at one point. He's sold off as essentially a slave, and he's just used as entertainment for the people of Rome. And I thought he did a really good job in this gritty role of at first being just this man who wants revenge, much like the first one. But then eventually he, transforms and into this leader that, he's pretty much meant to be. And of course, everybody's going to be talking about Denzel Washington, scene stealer. He was great, fantastic performance. And, I really agree. I think he was amazing, first starting off. He's manipulating, he's conniving, he's willing to do whatever it takes to do what a lot of people back then, I would assume, want to do is, take over the throne. They're thirsty for that power, and his character is very determined to do that, willing to do whatever it takes. Starts off by just buying Paul Mescal's character as a slave, feeding him to the emperors and showing them what he can do. And the whole movie, he's just slowly weaseling his way in, to eventually be the one with all the power to take the throne. And Denzel just does a very good job at being that villain, being that bad guy, but also kind of still charming at the same time. It's Denzel. Every scene he's in, you're engaged with every word that's coming out of his mouth. Your eyes are glued to the screen. And you really just expect nothing less from Denzel. And that there's also something that he's hiding, something that we're in the dark about. He has certain motivations, obviously, that we just don't really know anything about. And once they're revealed, it's interesting. Now, Pedro Pascal, I love the guy. I think he's a great actor. He's great in this movie as well. I just don't think that he needed to be in this. I think it's a slight miscast. He kind of stands out like a sore thumb in a lot of ways. I mean, this guy is in every fucking movie nowadays. He's filming 4 movies right now. And I just think that he just kind of stands out. It takes me out of the movie whenever he's on the screen, because me personally, I just will always see him as Joe from The Last of Us. And that's just me, I will always see him as Joe, but he's great in this movie. He does what he needs to do. The fight scenes with him are great. And, I know he's a great actor. Everybody wants to work with him nowadays. The past 2 years, his career has just completely blasted off. But I don't think he needs to be in every movie, especially this movie. I think this movie would have benefited from having a lesser known actor just because of all the other star power. He just doesn't fit, in my opinion. Now, I do think Joseph Quinn is really good in this movie, actually, as one half of the Emperor twins. I think the other one is a total complete fucking moron. Definitely one of the worst things about the movie. But Joseph Quinn, I thought, did a great job. He's kind of he's still kind of silly, kind of over the top at certain points. his hair, he wears like a lot of his makeup with his like different colored eyeshadow and all that stuff. His acting and his performance works. His brother is just a complete moron, just a complete idiot, and I did not like him at all. Like halfway through the movie, he like starts having this like monkey around his shoulder and on his neck, like a little pet friend. He does something in the third act. You're just like, this is fucking stupid. This movie also absolutely improves upon the first one in the fight sequences and all the action. This movie, we get a naval battle scene, which takes place in the Coliseum. They fill the water up with ocean water, I would assume, because there's sharks swimming in it and everything. I don't know where they would get this ocean water or how they would get that much into the Coliseum, or even just how they would get the sharks from the ocean to the Coliseum. Doesn't seem easy, but I know that it's true, and I know they actually did that back then. So that was a really cool scene. The two ships fighting each other, that was awesome. And it kind of just upped the stakes a little bit because of all the sharks. Like I said, I think there's probably 10 that are just swimming around while they're fighting on these ships. It just makes it a little more intense, a little more, anxiety. Because if you fall in, you get shot with an arrow or whatever it is, the ships crash, you fall off, you're gonna get eaten by a shark. And that's pretty cool. That made it a lot more fun to watch. No surprise as well, the production design in this movie is top notch. Ridley Scott does a lot of period pieces. The first one had great production design. All the costumes, all the designs, the helmets, the look of the Coliseum once again, and just Rome in general is just, I know a lot of it's CGI, but with all the CGI that I could tell, there's a lot of it. There's a lot that I probably couldn't spot or see, and I really always will appreciate that, and I think the look of everything was phenomenal. And I know it was like 2,000 years ago as well, but the emperors and all these people in the Senate, all the, higher up rich people, they got some pretty nice fucking houses for being 2,000 years ago. They weren't living bad. They might not have had AC, but they were living pretty good. But the standout for me is definitely the hand-to-hand combat in this movie, the one-on-ones that they have. There's probably 3 or 4 of them, but the choreography in all of them are so badass, so intense, so engaging the whole time. They have the swords. Sometimes they don't have the swords. They're fist fighting. All the sound design of the punches and the swords. It's all so gripping. And, a lot of this movie is just dialogue. A lot of it's just like a play, just people conspiring behind each other's backs, people finding out, people trying to take over certain things. And those hand-to-hand combat scenes, not only in the Coliseum, but there's a few that aren't, those definitely have you on the edge of your seat. And I loved it. I could have had 20 more of those. And the blood, man, there's a lot more blood in this movie. This movie is pretty damn bloody, which I will always appreciate. Some of it's CGI, which takes you out of the movie, but I mean, whatever. We can't all be Terrifier. But no, a lot of it's pretty cool. A lot of the kills that they have in this movie, there's like a rhino in one scene, which is pretty sick. So I definitely liked how they went that bloodier route as opposed to the first one. I also think the whole dynamic between, the people of Rome and all the people, on the Senate, everyone who's like higher up, all the hierarchy, I think that whole dynamic and relationship between it, the Roman Empire and all that, I think it's very interesting. And, Emperor Caesar from the first one, right before he's about to die, he has this, dream of what Rome can be and should be. He wants there to be no republic. He wants to get rid of the tyranny and everything that's going on, holding all these citizens, basically hostage. And I like how they dive deeper into those ideas and really expanding on the fact that most of the people, all the citizens, they want to be free. They don't want to be under an emperor or ruler or whatever it is. Now, in the first act of the movie, I was a little bit worried. Something happens to Paul Mescal's character. It's pretty similar to the first one. You're like, oh my God, is this going to be, the same exact thing, beat for beat, a revenge story? He's just overpowered with revenge. That's all he can see the whole movie. That's all he wants. Even the order of the first act pretty much is the same. Something happens. He gets captured. He's even shipped off to the same place in the first one, Ostia, to fight. But it does go a different direction, which I appreciated. It's not done in necessarily the best way. I think a lot of people are going to have complaints about that because Paul Mescal, it starts off, he just wants revenge. He wants to kill, this person that did something horrible to him. And just one thing kind of changes that. It kind of happens really fast. Basically, one line of dialogue changes his mind, and it's just boom, done. He no longer wants revenge. So I kind of get that, but at the same time, it's 2,000 years ago. The Romans specifically, they serve the city of Rome. They're so dedicated. You know, they're so loyal to that idea and that concept that it didn't really bother me as much as I would assume it's going to bother a lot of people. And yeah, after they do decide to go that different route in the second half, it's basically starting to just focus and dive deeper into the politics of ancient Rome, which is intriguing. I also enjoyed seeing Connie Nielsen return back for this role, and Derek Jacobi. I mean, this dude is like 80 years old in the first movie. Gracchus, I believe is his character's name. You know, he's part of the Senate. And when I saw him in this movie, like, see his character, I was like, no fucking way, dude. Like, how, what? He was so old in the first one, and he's still acting in this 25 years later. And I was like, God damn, man. So yeah, overall, I mean, this movie actually surprised me a lot. I really enjoyed it. You know, like I said, I know there's going to be things that bother a lot of people, but they don't necessarily bother or take anything away from me. You know, I think the dialogue is sharp. The action, fight sequences, everything is improved upon. You know, Ridley Scott did a great job directing it all. Paul Mescal, you need to be in more movies. He does a great job. Denzel is Denzel, you know. He's fucking Denzel, man. And I think this is a really good sequel to the first one, and just everything that it, you know, keeps going, everything that it expands upon, and that it adds to. I think it adds a lot to the first movie, and I might be in the minority on that, but I really enjoyed it. You know, it may not be a classic or, you know, revered as one of the greatest movies of all time or win Best Picture this year or any of that, but I still think it is a solid sequel without a doubt. But yeah, overall, guys, those are just my thoughts. You know, if you're a huge fan of the first one, if it's one of your favorite movies of all time, like I said, I can see this kind of maybe disappointing you a little bit, but I still think it's worth seeing in theaters. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. But yeah, thank you for clicking on this video. Appreciate you guys watching. You know, as always, like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. My name is Zach, and as always, I will see you on the next one.